It was a quiet summer evening in Dover, New Hampshire. The neighborhood, usually calm and uneventful, was suddenly disrupted by the sound of gunfire. Around 8:30 p.m., multiple calls came into the local police station. Neighbors reported loud bangs echoing from the Long residence, a home many knew as the picture of stability and family life. When officers arrived, the front door stood still, the house eerily silent. Inside, they would uncover a scene that shook even the most seasoned investigators, a tragedy that would leave an entire community stunned, searching for answers. How could a family so admired, so seemingly devoted to each other, fall into such darkness? What hidden struggles could drive a household from warmth and love into unthinkable violence? This is the story of Emily and Ryan Long, a story of love, illness, pressure, and despair, ending in a night that no one in Dover will ever forget. If you're a fan of true crime and criminal investigations, you won't want to miss our new book, The Ultimate Book of Serial Killers: 180 Files of the World's Most Notorious Murderers, now available on Amazon. You can also purchase the PDF version directly from our website for instant download. You'll find the link in the video description and in a pinned comment. Now, let's dive into today's case. Emily Long was born on April the 12th, 1991 in Dover, a quiet coastal city in New Hampshire, United States. Dover, with its mix of historic buildings, green spaces, and proximity to the ocean, provided a picturesque backdrop for Emily's early years. She was the second of three children born to John and Linda, a couple whose lives had already been marked by both joy and sorrow. Only a few months before Emily's birth, John and Linda had endured the devastating loss of a pregnancy. The grief left a scar, but when Emily arrived, she became a symbol of renewal, a living reminder that hope could follow pain. For John and Linda, her birth rekindled their determination to build a stable home, one filled with the love and resilience they so deeply valued. Linda, a dedicated elementary school teacher in a rural school nearby, was known for her patience and kindness, traits she carried into her role as a mother. John, a mechanical engineer who managed a modest workshop, worked long hours to provide for his family, instilling in his children a sense of discipline and responsibility. Emily's childhood was shaped by that foundation. The Long household was modest, but steady, private yet warm. Neighbors and acquaintances would later recall how the family always kept a low profile, avoiding unnecessary attention. Yet it was evident to those who knew them that Emily grew up surrounded by love and strong family values. Her parents emphasized the importance of education, hard work, and kindness, principles that Emily absorbed early on. From the very beginning, Emily showed herself to be a bright and motivated child. Teachers remembered her as cheerful, eager to learn, and always willing to help her classmates. Her natural sense of responsibility grew as she entered adolescence, where she balanced academics with friendships and extracurricular activities. By the time she reached high school, Emily had earned a reputation for being dependable and ambitious. She wasn't the loudest or most outgoing student, but her consistency, warmth, and work ethic made her stand out. Classmates described her as approachable, always smiling, and the type of person you could rely on in any circumstance. Her teenage years also revealed her growing independence. Emily was driven by a desire not just to succeed academically, but to make something meaningful of her life. Her dedication to her studies eventually opened the door to higher education, and after graduation, she enrolled in a university program in hotel management. Choosing this path reflected both her love for organization and her natural ability to connect with people. The degree demanded long hours and discipline, but Emily thrived, completing her coursework with the same perseverance that had defined her earlier years. It was during this time that Emily's life took another important turn. At university, she met Ryan Long, the man who would eventually become her husband. Their connection was not a whirlwind romance, but rather a relationship built slowly, on stability, shared goals, and mutual respect. Their bond grew stronger as they navigated the challenges of young adulthood together. Over time, their affection and commitment deepened, and after several years, they decided to marry, guided by a common dream: to build a home filled with love and to raise a family together. Ryan Long was born in 1977 and came from a background that emphasized compassion and service. In his youth, he was passionate about music and often spent evenings with friends playing guitar. Those who knew him during those years described him as gentle, thoughtful, and patient, qualities that would later define his adult life. While music remained an important part of his personal identity, Ryan chose a professional path rooted in helping others. He pursued a degree in school psychology, motivated by a desire to support children and families facing emotional and behavioral challenges. Over the years, Ryan established himself as a trusted figure within the school district, where he worked for nearly a decade. His role involved offering psychological support to students dealing with anxiety, trauma, and family difficulties. Parents respected him for his dedication, colleagues admired his calm presence, and students often turned to him as a safe and reliable guide through difficult times. His professional reputation was further enhanced when he pursued advanced training, earning a master's degree in counseling and becoming certified as a board-approved behavior analyst. Each achievement reflected his deep commitment to making a difference in the lives of others. Together, Emily and Ryan built the life they had envisioned. Their marriage was grounded in affection and stability, and in time, their family grew. They welcomed 3 children into the world: 2 boys, Parker and Ryan Jr., and a daughter, Lily. Parenthood brought them immense joy, and those close to the family described their home as warm and full of life. Emily devoted herself to creating balance, pouring energy into her professional responsibilities while remaining fully present for her children. Since 2018, Emily had worked as director of operations for a local restaurant chain, a demanding position that required leadership, organization, and long hours. Yet she managed her career with the same determination she had shown since childhood. At home, she was equally committed. Friends and neighbors often marveled at her ability to juggle multiple responsibilities: running a household, caring for her children, supporting her husband, and succeeding in her career, all while maintaining a spirit of kindness and generosity. To those who knew her personally, Emily was the embodiment of resilience and devotion. Ryan complemented her perfectly. He was admired not only as a professional, but also as a husband and father. His patience, empathy, and steady presence anchored the family through the ups and downs of daily life. Together, they projected an image of stability and fulfillment, admired by neighbors as a model family, one that reflected love, dedication, and balance. By 2022, Ryan had expanded his career further, working part-time as an adjunct instructor at the State University, where he taught graduate programs and shared his professional expertise with the next generation of counselors. For the Long family, life seemed to be unfolding beautifully. Emily and Ryan had reached many of the goals they once dreamed of, enjoying the stability and fulfillment of their accomplishments. But just as everything appeared to be in balance, tragedy struck. In early 2025, Ryan received a devastating diagnosis, an aggressive and often terminal form of brain cancer. The news carried grim statistics. Most patients survive no more than 15 months. While surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation could slow the disease, they rarely stopped its progression. The cancer was relentless, often bringing seizures, cognitive decline, and personality changes, turning once vibrant loved ones into unrecognizable figures within their own homes. For Ryan, these changes began to appear all too quickly. Emily was thrust into a new role, not just a wife and mother, but her husband's primary caregiver. She carried the immense mental, physical, and emotional burden of managing his treatments while keeping her family afloat. Determined to process her reality and find some measure of strength, she began documenting her journey online. Through daily videos on a popular social media platform under the account name Ryan Cancer Wife, Emily shared the raw truth of living beside a terminal illness. Her posts revealed the exhausting cycles of surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation, as well as her own battles with depression, overwhelming fatigue, and the struggle to remain strong for her children. The account quickly became more than a diary. It was a heartbreaking testimony of love, despair, and resilience. For Emily, it was also a lifeline, a place where she sought understanding and support from strangers, often saying that recording her thoughts was cheaper than therapy. Yet, as the weeks passed, her tone darkened. The weight of caring for Ryan and raising their children largely on her own grew heavier. Her videos revealed increasing hopelessness, emotional conflict, and the suffocating pressure of a life overtaken by illness. On Sunday, August 17, 2025, Emily, just 34 years old, posted one final message. She admitted she was overwhelmed with depression, crushed by the situation at home, yet still trying to fight for the sake of her children. But the next day, the struggle reached its breaking point. On the evening of August 18th, around 8:30 p.m., local police arrived at the Long family property after neighbors called emergency services. They reported hearing the chilling sound of gunshots echoing from the home. What authorities found that night would mark a tragic turn in the story of Emily and Ryan Long. When officers entered the Long residence, they were met with a devastating scene. 4 members of the family were confirmed dead. Ryan, 48 years old, was found lifeless, and 2 of their children, 8-year-old Parker and 6-year-old Ryan, each with fatal gunshot wounds to the head. Emily herself was discovered in the master bedroom, a firearm still in her hand, with a self-inflicted gunshot wound that ended her life. In the midst of this tragedy, the youngest child, a 3-year-old baby, was found unharmed in the crib, spared from the violence that claimed the rest of the family. The discovery left even seasoned officers shaken. An investigation began immediately. Authorities examined Emily's social media activity, text messages, and emails. What emerged was a clear pattern of emotional decline. Though Emily left no formal note, her online posts had grown increasingly dark in tone, pointing to desperation, exhaustion, and untreated emotional distress. Forensic examinations confirmed the details. 8-year-old Parker had suffered a single gunshot wound to the head, while 6-year-old Ryan was killed after being struck by multiple bullets. Emily's cause of death was determined to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. From the timing of injuries and other evidence, investigators reconstructed the sequence of events. Between 5:30 and 6 a.m. on August 18, 2025, Emily retrieved a firearm that belonged to her husband. She shot Ryan multiple times as he slept, then turned the weapon on her two children, Parker and Ryan, taking their lives with single shots to the head. Finally, she ended her own life, while her youngest kid remained in the home but miraculously survived unharmed. The crime scene offered no signs of struggle or evidence of outside involvement. The firearm had been legally purchased by Ryan years earlier for home protection. With no indication of third-party suspects, the case was classified as a murder-suicide. In the aftermath, the deputy prosecutor addressed the public, urging caution in drawing conclusions. He emphasized that tragedies of this nature are rarely explained by a single cause. While Ryan's terminal illness and Emily's emotional strain were seen as critical pressures, investigators also considered broader factors, financial, psychological, and social, that may have contributed. For the small community of just over 2,000 residents, the loss was staggering. The Long family had been regarded as exemplary, a model household of dedication and love. Now, the town was left reeling, mourning the deaths of a family that had once embodied stability, warmth, and hope. Neighbors and friends remembered the Long family as kind, generous, and deeply engaged in the local community. Ryan, in particular, was beloved for his work as a school psychologist. Students, parents, and colleagues all spoke of his compassion and his steady presence. One of his longtime friends from high school, Tara, described him as an incredible man whose greatest dream was to be a father. That dream, she explained, defined much of who he was. Emily and Ryan's children were also cherished in the community. Friends and neighbors recalled how Parker and Ryan were bright, playful, and affectionate. Just weeks before the tragedy, the children had set up a small lemonade stand outside their home, an innocent act of childhood that made the shock of their loss even more painful. The local school district declared a period of mourning. The elementary school issued a statement of condolence, while community organizations stepped forward to provide psychological support. Counselors were made available not only for the surviving kid, but also for students, staff, and neighbors struggling to process what had happened. In the midst of grief, however, other troubling details surfaced. Reports emerged of allegations against Emily related to financial misconduct at her workplace. Derek Fisher, the owner of the restaurant chain where Emily served as director of operations, revealed that a significant sum of money, around $660,000, had gone missing over the course of a year. According to Fisher, this began long before Ryan's cancer diagnosis. The losses, he explained, appeared connected to a series of checks issued under Emily's name. When Fisher confronted her, Emily's responses were vague. He requested account statements covering the past 3 months, which she provided on August 5, 2025. But when Fisher reviewed them with the bank, officials determined the documents had been altered, with several pages missing. In one conversation, Emily reportedly told him she could resign, or that he could fire her, remarks that left him unsettled. Just days later, on August 11th, Derek Fisher filed an official complaint formally accusing Emily of embezzlement. For him, it was not only a professional matter but a deeply personal blow. Fisher had trusted her for years, granting her oversight of finances and operations. To discover irregularities and missing funds shook that trust to its core. In interviews later, he described the decision to file charges as devastating, an action he took out of duty, never imagining that, within a single week, the Long family would be gone. The coincidence of events left him and many others wondering whether this additional pressure, stacked on top of Ryan's illness and Emily's emotional exhaustion, may have pushed her to a breaking point. As of today, the official investigation into what happened inside the Long residence remains open. Authorities continue to piece together every detail, reviewing financial records, tracing communication logs, and interviewing relatives, neighbors, and colleagues. They are searching not only for a clearer timeline of Emily's final days, but also for answers to the deeper question of why. What chain of stressors, crises, and unspoken struggles could converge so sharply to end in such irreversible violence? This case has sparked an urgent conversation about mental health. Experts emphasize that the Long tragedy cannot be explained by a single factor. Instead, it is a portrait of cumulative pressure, the crushing weight of terminal illness, the exhaustion of caregiving, the quiet descent into depression, and perhaps the added strain of financial or professional conflict. It highlights how families often endure battles invisible to the outside world, their suffering hidden behind polite smiles or filtered social media posts. Emily's online videos, raw and unfiltered, became haunting evidence of a silent collapse. Viewers now look back on her words with different eyes, recognizing signs of despair that at the time might have gone unnoticed. Her account shows how isolation, compounded by emotional exhaustion, can push even the most devoted and loving individuals into dangerous territory. Psychologists stress that what Emily experienced is not unique. Millions of caregivers, particularly women, face overwhelming stress with little to no structured support. In the wake of the tragedy, social services and mental health organizations across New Hampshire moved to strengthen their safety nets. Local clinics expanded crisis hotlines. Counselors began outreach programs specifically for families dealing with terminal illness. Workshops were developed to train community leaders, teachers, clergy, neighbors, to better recognize signs of caregiver burnout and severe emotional strain. New protocols were discussed at the state level, aiming to ensure that those caring for loved ones under impossible circumstances are offered help before reaching a breaking point. Meanwhile, the community of Dover, a town of just over 2,000, was left in shock. The Long family had been admired as a model household, dedicated, hardworking, and kind. Vigils were held at local churches. The school district lowered its flags in mourning. Friends, neighbors, and colleagues gathered to share memories of Ryan's steady kindness, Emily's determination, and the children's bright laughter. For many, the image of Parker and Ryan Jr. running a lemonade stand just weeks earlier lingered painfully in their minds. The surviving kid became the focus of community prayers and donations as people searched for some way to support the only family member spared from the violence. The story of Emily and Ryan Long stands as a heartbreaking reminder of the human suffering behind statistics and headlines. It is a reminder that beneath every news report are real lives, people who loved, dreamed, and tried to endure. Their story is not only about tragedy, but also about love, a marriage rooted in devotion, children raised with care, and a family that, for years, embodied stability and resilience. Yet it is also about the cost of silence, the dangers of unaddressed despair, and the devastating consequences when systems of support fail. As viewers, we are left with uncomfortable but necessary questions. How many caregivers around us are silently drowning under the weight of responsibility? How many families live on the edge of collapse without anyone noticing? And what can communities, institutions, and governments do to prevent tragedies like this from repeating? Emily and Ryan's lives and their deaths demand that we pay attention. They call us to see beyond appearances, to recognize vulnerability in those who seem strong, and to understand that sometimes the greatest battles are fought quietly, in kitchens, hospital rooms, and bedrooms where exhaustion and fear are rarely spoken aloud. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.